Believe it or not, these next book titles are real. This bee got roaches in her crib. And the follow-up, of course, is this hoe still got roaches in, now rats, in her crib. And now we're going to move from roaches in the crib to the hoe dreams, beginning with ugly hoe dreams, moving on to crack hoe dreams, and ending with CNA hoe dreams. So I don't know if you're going from the ugly to the crack to the CNA, or you start off as a CNA and then went to ugly and crack, or you born ugly and then you go to crack and then get your life together as CNA. I don't know the order. But now let's move to the other. Pregnant by my gay stepdaddy. I don't even understand the physics of that. What? If you are gay, would you like the sex with a woman? Sleeping with the pastor's side chick.
In today's video, we're going to go over 6 tips on how to build your author brand, a Quan Millz case study. If you don't know who I am, my name's Andrea, the word engineer, a former engineer turned freelance book editor living in Mexico. I help aspiring authors and solopreneurs write, edit, and market their book to build their personal brand. Let's get right into it. In the beginning of the video, I showed you a clip of Kev on stage just reading a few of the titles written by Quan Millz. So now we're going to look into some of the content that's in some of his books, just to give you a better idea of who this author is and the type of genre and content that he writes. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get right into it.
Today, we're dipping our toe into Quan Millz, and we're going to talk about one of his most famous works. Now, Quan Millz is fascinating, and I'll talk more about him specifically, but the first thing you need to know is that he makes satirical, comedic, honestly really gross stories, particularly erotica, that have some outlandish title or cover. For those of you that recall, a few years ago, I think, I dipped my toe into Chuck Tingle, who does a similar thing, but they're short stories, so you're not sitting there for like a day reading this book. But no, this is a full book, and I hated every second of it. I've owned it now 3 different times. I'll explain that again in a bit. And today, we are talking about possibly Quan Millz' most popular work, certainly one of the first ones to come up if you look him up, THOT Next Door. And sure, that title alone is quite befuddling, but I think nothing really gets you prepared for the reading experience that you're about to go on, quite like looking at the cover of it. So, look at it. Don't look away. Look at it. Look at it! Look at it! Look at it! Feel it. Get a sense of it. The poorly photoshopped face of someone's grandma on top of a 24-year-old's body. 2 random shirtless, presumably bisexual men. It's gonna get wild. But in ways that you won't even see coming. Double entendre. But Quan Millz is the creator of these masterpieces of shit. And if you read it, it does sound like a non-black guy wrote it. It really does. It sounds like so cartoonishly ratchet that it feels racist. But no, I found out that Quan Millz is indeed a black man. Ironic. But yes, he has been the author of various Tubi-esque book endeavors, including but not limited to Past His Eat 2, which apparently Twitter has recently discovered. I already know about it. I didn't listen to it yet. I want to enjoy my life because I still had to read this twice. Pregnant by my mother's gay husband. And today, we are of course discussing possibly his most famous work, THOT Next Door. The cover of the book should theoretically prepare me for just anything. It did not. This book is incredibly gross. Like, the comedy, whatever. Like, oh, you know, this is reductionist and black, blah, 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 and blackness and blah, blah, blah. Ah, all that. It's gross. Like, it's just nasty and it's gross. But somehow, Quan Millz was able to make an entire book based off of this. THOT Next Door follows main character, Vernita Ernestine Washington, a 76-year-old widow who has entered into, or has been in her sexual peak for the last few years, zipping it and doing it, in the words of Wendy Williams. Honestly, the first few sentences prepare you for the caliber of reading experience you're about to bestow, and particularly what it's going to be like to join within the mind of our main character, Vernita, and her philosophy on life at 76 years of age. Quote, baby. No, I don't know why, but I make all old black women in my mind sound like they're from New Orleans. That's where my dad's from. So if I think of any old black woman with a particularly strong accent, I just assume. But this woman is from Chicago. So I don't know. Anyway, baby, let me tell you one thing. I don't give a damn what you think about me and my age. I might be 76 years old. This big, thick I can't do it. But this big, thick between my toned brown legs. Don't act like it.
Ooh, I can't.
Because I could see in Markel's eyes that I could make him a victim to my good, tender pussy. Lo and behold.
Not the head slow roll.
2 home training sessions later, I seduced his ass and put this moist pink monkey of mine on him. Child, I had to let that young man know Miss Bonita still had that snapback. Since
Not the random head nod, like, what's up, my guy?
then, Markel had been my #1 boo thing, because I could see in Markel's eyes.
Okay, so now that you have a little taste of what the type of content is in Mr. Quan Millz' books, let's get into this NPR article where he did an interview with Alana Wise, all right? All right, so the article by NPR is called Quan Millz is Out to Make a Buck, One Street Lit Book at a Time by Alana Wise. And this article was published October 12th, 2023. Quan Millz knows that his writing is provocative. That's the whole point. With titles like Pregnant by My Mother's Gay Husband and My Pastor's Got a Stripper and My Pastor Got a Stripper Pregnant, the self-published Millz has carved a very specific niche in the urban fiction space. I decided to try to experiment with different titles that were like very on the nose, very controversial, salacious, that I knew would just grab people's attention, and it worked. Millz told NPR. When Millz commissioned his first book ran off on the plug twice, named after a popular rap song of the time, he never really expected the novel to gain much traction. He had just been let go from a job at a Chicago law firm and was feeling burned out from the corporate scene. At first, I was like, I'm not doing that. That's weird, Millz said of writing urban fiction. But in need of money and inspired by a friend who was self-publishing her own books and bringing in a comfortable income doing it, Millz decided to dive in. His first book landed with a bit of a splash, but it wasn't until he tapped into increasingly controversial titles that he truly found his audience. His next title, okay, his next title, My Bad White Bee, was his first step in that direction. I saw this one cover. It was very different from the standard urban fiction cover. It had a white woman on it, blonde hair, a Lamborghini, drugs, guns, Millz said of a pre-made cover he found online. Those other elements are very common of urban fiction covers, but the white woman wasn't. So he hired a ghostwriter and published the novel. The book earned him somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 in 2 months. Hey, that's not bad. That sudden infusion of cash was a lifesaver in a way, he said. But also, it was the signal that, okay, there's something here with the titles, Millz said. It's going to grab people's attention and you're going to make money. So who's Quan Millz? Millz, whose given name is Colby Durden, was born and raised in Miami, but now lives with his wife in the suburbs of Chicago. If you would have asked me 10 years ago, would I be doing this? I would be like, hell no. In fact, it's interesting because I actually do have a background in working for nonprofits, Millz said. The 39-year-old was raised by both parents in what he describes as a solidly middle class household and had long envisioned himself working in politics. It wasn't until 2017, when he lost his job as a proposal writer, that he explored street lit. I was like, hey, you know what? Screw corporate America. I'm not going back. I'm going all in with urban fiction. But as he amassed a following, churning out book after book, sometimes spending as little as a weekend penning a piece, Mills found himself embroiled in controversies with readers and in competitive spats with other writers. That, coupled with his use of an obvious nom de plume is like a pen name, and generally faceless online presence, led to theories that the writer behind titles like THOT Next Door was actually a white man mocking the genre. Mills, who admits to having a trolling nature at times, ran with this newfound identity, joking in another post. Yep, I'm enjoying my white life the sunny on the sunny beaches of California, further fanning the flames. What they saw was, oh, this makes sense. This is the guy who wrote this book. This hoe got roaches in her crib. It makes sense that this would be a white guy writing these types of books because no self respecting black person would do this. Even as Mills has gone more public with his appearance on TikTok, capturing a new younger audience and making clear that he's black, some people still accuse him of cosplaying his blackness. But Mills responds to those comments as one of the stupidest internet conspiracies known to man. Mills is far from the first to dive into the urban fiction genre. Titles like Pimp from Iceberg Slim, Horizon by Donald Goines, and Mills's biggest inspiration, The Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Souljah, paved the way for Mills's work. Jacinta R. Safford is an assistant professor of African American literature at the University of Delaware. Safford, whose research focuses on street lit at the turn of the century, has not read Mills's work, but based on his titles and her expertise in the area, Safford said his salacious titles remind her of some of the less serious ventures into urban writing, like Sean Wayne's 1997 comedic title, 150 Ways to Tell If You're Ghetto. She said even though the genre of street lit is known for its gritty urban realism, there's a history of over the top humor like the kind Mills employs. I believe there is a difference between a kind of slapstick book that is intentionally trying to cause a reaction in the readership versus authors that were intentionally trying to capture the unmitigated circumstances of hip hop and trying to do what gangster rappers were doing in hip hop music and print, Safford said. And it's often when artists make the switch from difficult subjects to less serious work that they can find broader success, she added. So, without an author like Sister Souljah having a successful rap career with Public Enemy and going toe to toe with Bill Clinton before she picked up her pen and started writing things like No Disrespect and The Coldest Winter Ever, I'm not sure if The Coldest Winter Ever or No Disrespect would have been met with such critical acclaim. So far, Mills has published about 700 plus published works, a handful of which were ghostwritten, and about 150,000 units sold, he said. Many of these titles sell for as little as a buck on Amazon. Borrowing from the imagination of another urban fiction writer, Shamik Spite, whose Child of a Crackhead series had been well received on Amazon, Mills fully leaned into stereotypical hood motifs of sex, drugs, unambitious women, and their ultimate downfalls. I'm going to take this formula and I'm going to run with it, but I'm going to add my own spin to it, Mills said. It's been a strategy that served him well professionally. Mills now works full time as an author and says he's generated over $500,000 in book royalties across reader platforms, including paperback, audiobooks, and ebooks. On Facebook, groups dedicated to the author have tens of thousands of followers. One of those followers, 28-year-old Taylor Oliver, says she's been reading Mills for about 5 years, describing the author's writing as gripping storytelling, totally different to the man she and thousands more frequently interact with on TikTok and Facebook groups. He just comes across as like a totally genuine, yet just really intelligent and articulate guy, she said. It's the funniest thing because from his writing, you wouldn't expect that his demeanor is so kind of cool, calm, and collected. And you would think that he was a lot more like some of the characters that he writes. But that's just a testament to his skills. Is the content harmful to the Black community? Despite the high praise he received from fans, critics say that Mill's work is an exploitative and overly simplistic vignette into Black life. It's commodifying the Black experience, said University of New Haven professor Randall Horton. Horton is an award-winning author who served 5 years in prison on 7 felony convictions. Some of the topics that Millz discusses in his books, drugs, infidelity, poverty, Horton said, are things he and other Black people have actually experienced, not just fodder for outsiders to laugh at. I spent 30 years on the streets hustling and smuggling all kinds of things. Went to prison. I did time, Horton said. I wanted to talk about all of those things that Millz is talking about. And I did, in my own way. But what Millz is doing, Horton said, seems more like a cash grab. If you're just if you're just in it to make money, then maybe that's the path for you. And you don't have to think about any of the consequences of whatever happens. Millz is aware of the reactions he provokes. Of course, there are people out there who have valid criticisms and concerns that my books are a misrepresentation of Black people, Millz said. And I'm not oblivious to those criticisms because at times I do go back and I reflect on my own work and I wonder, like, wow, okay, I was a little bit too heavy handed there, he said. Still, he has no plans to change tact. But at the same time, I'm not the first to do this and I won't be the last. So now that you have a better idea of who the author Quan Millz is, let's go over the 6 steps on how to build your author brand. So the first step is to know your niche. So with titles like Pregnant by My Mother's Gay Husband and My Pastor Got a Stripper Pregnant, the self-published Mims has carved a very specific niche in the urban fiction space. So why is knowing your niche important? Knowing your niche is important because it enables you to effectively target and connect with a very specific audience, which then allows you to build a loyal readership. When you specialize in a particular genre, you can then establish a strong brand identity and develop expertise that sets you apart from other writers. This focus allows you to be more effective when you market and during your promotion stages. Therefore, you can tailor your efforts to meet the interests and needs of your niche audience. A clear niche provides direction and purpose, and it also enhances your productivity and increases your chances of success in the competitive world of fiction writing. The next step is to know your audience. In another quote on the NPR article, his first book landed with a bit of a splash, but it wasn't until he tapped into increasingly controversial titles that he truly found his audience. So why is knowing your audience important? When you know your audience, it allows you to craft stories that resonate deeply with readers, ensuring that your content meets their interests, their preferences, and their expectations. When you understand and you know who your audience is, you can tailor your themes, your characters, and your plot lines to engage with your audience effectively. This also helps when you get ready to market your book in marketing strategies. It allows you to reach and attract the right audience, the right readers through targeted promotion and relevant messaging. Ultimately, when you truly know and understand who your audience is, it will enhance the reader experience and it builds a loyal fan base. Thus, it can aid in building a long term successful career as an author. Step 3. Step 3 is to have an attention grabbing title. In an article by NPR, Millz says, I decided to try to experiment with different titles that were like very on the nose, very controversial, salacious, that I just knew that would just grab people's attention. And it worked. So why is it key to have an attention grabbing title for your book? First, it's the first impression. It's the first impression. and it's your primary hook that draws readers into your work. A compelling title can pique curiosity, evoke emotions, and generate interest, which entices potential readers to want to pick up your book and read it. An attention-grabbing title is crucial for capturing interest and driving reader engagement. Step 4 is to understand book covers in your niche. I saw this one cover. It was very different from the standard urban fiction cover. It had a white woman on it, blonde hair, a Lamborghini, drugs, guns, Millz said. Those other elements are very common of urban fiction covers. However, the white woman was not. So, the Lamborghini, the drugs, the guns, these are all common things that you can find in urban fiction covers. So he didn't necessarily try to change his cover, he just added another element to it. So why is it important to know the book covers in your niche and why you want to emulate and use those covers as a template for your own book? So understanding book covers in your niche is key because the cover is the first visual cue of your potential readers. It influences their decision to pick up your book or purchase it. A well-designed cover that aligns with the conventions and aesthetics of your niche can effectively convey the genre and mood of your story, and it signals to your readers that this book fits their interests. It helps in setting the right expectations and attracting the target audience who are familiar with and drawn to these visual styles. Additionally, a cover that resonates with the trends and standards of your niche enhances your book's marketability and professionalism, and it stands out in a very competitive market. A strong understanding of book covers in your niche ensures that your book appeals visually to your intended audience, which aids in its chances of success. The next step is to not reinvent the wheel. So, in the NPR article, Millz says, Millz fully leaned into stereotypical hood motifs of sex, drugs, unambitious women, and their ultimate downfalls. I'm going to take that formula and I'm going to run with it, but I'm going to add my own spin to it. So when you have settled on your niche, you understand the type of content that readers in this niche like to engage with. Don't try to reinvent the wheel, but add your own spin to it, similarly to how Millz has done in his genre. So why is this important? It maintains that balance of familiarity with originality. So you meet your audience's expectation while also offering something new and intriguing. It also allows you to stick to established conventions that helps attract your readers who enjoy the genre's typical elements that make your work more marketable and recognizable. However, when you add your own unique twist, you can add your own freshness, your personal creativity that helps to distinguish your work from others within the niche. This blend of tried and true with your distinct voice can captivate readers that can help with satisfaction and excitement. Ultimately, when you use those established conventions that are within your niche and add your own spin to it, it allows you to one, honor the genre's tradition, and two, contribute to its evolution while keeping it unique and dynamic. So the last step number 6, is to have quick releases or turnarounds. So in the article by NPR, it says, but as he amassed the following, churning out book after book, sometimes spending as little as a weekend penning a piece. So that just goes to show that in this specific niche, which is urban fiction or street lit, is what it was referred to in the NPR article. Being able to rapidly release your books is super beneficial to you. Why? Why is that beneficial to you as a self-published author? It helps maintain the reader's interest and engagement, and it ensures that your audience remains excited and invested in your work. Also, this approach allows you to build momentum, keeps your name and stories fresh in your readers' minds, and encourages continuous consumption of your content. However, keep in mind, this strategy is typically only possible and feasible if your genre is in romance, thrillers, or episodic fantasy. Now, if you're an author who does a lot of world building, or you have a lot of intricate plots, or maybe you have to do a lot of like deep research, like a historical fiction or epic fantasy, releasing a book, writing a book in a weekend, it's probably not going to work for you. You know what I'm saying? However, if you are in those other genres like romance, thrillers, episodic fantasy, then you can probably produce a book very, very quickly and release in what they call rapid release or quick release. So there you have your 6 steps on how to build your author brand, a Quan Millz case study. So remember, step 1 is to know your niche. Step 2 is to know your audience. Step 3 is to have an attention grabbing title. Step 4 is to know and understand the types of book covers that are already in your niche. Step 5, don't try and reinvent the wheel. Just add your own spin to it, just add your own take to it. And step 6 is to have a quick turnaround or a rapid release of your books if your specific genre fits into that rapid release type of style. So let's check out a short little clip of who Quan Millz is. Once again, that's not his real name, that's a pen name. So let's get into a short little clip. He's on a healthcare journey right now, so let's check him out.
No fast food, no alcohol, no weed, no sugar, no red meat, no dairy, no ultra-processed food, no refined grains, no manly social media scrolling, no low vibrational dark music, no corn, no eggplant or coaching, no sleeping in, no negative thoughts. I'm ready to get baby. Who's joining me tomorrow? June 1st. Who's with me? It's time to change, baby. It's time to change.
So, like I said, that was just a short little clip of Quan Millz, showing that he really is a black man, even though there is some controversy of him being a white man. He is a black man. He's on his healthcare journey. So, if you're interested in his books and his content, make sure you check him out. But I hope this video was helpful in showing you how to build your author brand. Make sure you hit that like button. Let me know what tip was most effective for you. Drop it in the comments and make sure you hit that subscribe button to my channel. All right. I'll see you guys in the next video, and make sure you check out my previous video where I go over a white author who decided to dress up in blackface, travel around the United States of America, and then he wrote a book about it and thought it was a really good idea. So I'll leave that link. I'll leave that link somewhere in the screen. Make sure you check it out. I'll see y'all in the next video.